I'm Marco, 32, a software engineer who clawed my way up from our cramped Seattle apartment where Mom raised us alone. Every promotion reminded me of watching her work 3 jobs just to keep food on our table. Yesterday, I was finalizing paperwork for my dream position in Tokyo when my phone buzzed. A text from my sister Sophia read, "I'm quitting my job, you'll take care of us while I figure things out." My stomach dropped. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me through this family drama that changed everything. Growing up in the Rainier Valley neighborhood of Seattle wasn't easy. Our apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms for the 3 of us, my mother Laura, my sister Sophia, and me. The walls were thin, the plumbing temperamental, but Mom somehow made it feel like home despite everything. Dad walked out when I was 8, and Sophia was 6. I still remember the sound of the door closing behind him, the finality of it. He never called, never sent birthday cards, never paid a cent in child support. It was as if he had simply erased us from his life. Mom never spoke badly of him, but the tight line of her mouth whenever his name came up told me everything I needed to know. After Dad left, Mom took on everything. She worked as a receptionist during the day, waited tables at night, and on weekends cleaned houses in the wealthy neighborhoods across town. I'd watch her come home after midnight, feet swollen, eyes heavy with exhaustion, but she'd still check our homework and make sure we had clean clothes for school the next day. "Education is your ticket out," she would say. "Work hard now so you don't have to work as hard later." I took those words to heart. By 14, I was stocking shelves at the local grocery store after school. My paychecks went straight to Mom, no questions asked. I knew what bills looked like when they came with red stamped warnings. I knew what it meant when Mom would stare at the contents of our refrigerator a little too long, calculating what meals she could stretch from almost nothing. Sophia, on the other hand, took a different path. 2 years younger than me, she seemed to float above the hardship, somehow immune to the weight of our circumstances. While I was working and studying, Sophia was running with friends, skipping classes, expecting Mom to fix her problems. And Mom always did. "Your sister is more sensitive," Mom would explain when I questioned why Sophia didn't have the same responsibilities. "She needs more time to find herself." I loved my sister, but watching her manipulate Mom was frustrating. When Sophia failed a class, Mom would stay up all night helping her with makeup assignments. When Sophia lost a part-time job for constantly showing up late, Mom would make excuses for her. When Sophia wanted new clothes we couldn't afford, Mom would put in extra cleaning jobs. Meanwhile, I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked through high school and took night classes at the community college while working full-time during the day. It took me 6 years instead of 4, but I finally earned my computer science degree. No one handed me anything. Every step forward came from my own sweat and determination. That degree changed everything. I started at a small tech company, taking an entry-level position that barely paid more than my previous retail job. But I worked overtime, volunteered for the projects no one else wanted, and slowly built a reputation as the guy who could solve problems. Each promotion felt like validation that my path, the harder path, had been the right one. Throughout my 20s, the family dynamic remained unchanged. Sophia bounced between jobs, relationships, and apartments, leaving a trail of unpaid loans and broken commitments. She'd show up at my door when her roommate kicked her out or when her car needed repairs she couldn't afford. And like Mom, I'd help her, though each time I promised myself it would be the last. "She's family," Mom would say when I expressed frustration. "We're all she has. But what about what I had? What about the life I was trying to build?" These questions always remained unspoken, buried beneath layers of guilt and obligation. By my 30th birthday, I had worked my way up to senior software engineer at a major tech firm. I had benefits, savings, and a modest but comfortable apartment of my own. For the first time, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I could breathe. Mom finally retired from her receptionist job, though she still picked up waitressing shifts occasionally to stay busy, she claimed, though I suspected it was more about making ends meet. I set up a monthly transfer to her account, not enough to fully support her, but enough to ease the burden. It felt good to finally give back to the woman who had sacrificed so much for us. Sophia, at 28, seemed to be finally stabilizing. She had held a job as an administrative assistant at a real estate office for almost a year, a record for her. She had her own studio apartment, and even talked about taking some college courses. I dared to hope that maybe, finally, she was growing up. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. My company was expanding its operations to Tokyo and needed experienced engineers to help establish the new office. The position came with a significant salary increase, housing allowance, and the chance to work in one of the most innovative tech markets in the world. When my manager asked if I would be interested, I didn't hesitate. "This is exactly the kind of opportunity you've worked for," he said. "2 years in Tokyo would fast-track your career in ways you can't imagine." That night, I called Mom to share the news. Her response was measured happy for me but concerned about the distance. "We'll hardly see you," she said, but assured me she was proud. Sophia seemed genuinely excited when I told her, asking questions about Tokyo and even joking about visiting me there. For once, everything seemed to be aligning. My career was advancing, Mom was enjoying retirement, and Sophia was standing on her own 2 feet. I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, a weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The weight of worrying about them, of feeling responsible for their well-being, of the constant guilt that came with pursuing my own goals. Little did I know, that weight was about to come crashing back down harder than ever before. The Tokyo offer came at what seemed like the perfect time in my life. At 32, I had established my professional reputation but was still young enough to adapt to a completely new culture and environment. The position was senior software engineer with a focus on expanding our company's AI capabilities in the Asian market. It represented not just a significant salary increase, almost 40% more than I was making in Seattle, but also the kind of international experience that could open doors for the rest of my career. "We need someone who can hit the ground running," my director James explained during the formal offer meeting. "Someone who understands our systems inside and out but can also adapt to new ways of doing things." Your name was at the top of everyone's list, Marco. The pride I felt in that moment was indescribable. All those years of extra hours, of volunteering for difficult projects, of putting work before personal relationships, they had led to this recognition. The company would provide a furnished apartment in Tokyo, language classes, cultural orientation, and a relocation bonus. The contract was for 2 years with the possibility of extension. That night, I allowed myself to dream about what this move could mean. I'd never been outside North America before. My vacations had been limited to weekend trips to Portland or Vancouver, always with one eye on my phone in case work needed me. Tokyo represented a complete change. New food, new language, new professional challenges, new friends. I stayed up late researching Japanese culture, already making mental lists of places I wanted to visit. The next morning, I called Mom to share the formal offer details. Her response was more enthusiastic than before. "Your father would be proud," she said, surprising me by mentioning him. She rarely did. He always wanted to travel but never had the chance. We talked about how I would set up regular video calls with her, how I'd bring her to visit once I was settled, and how the higher salary would allow me to increase my monthly contribution to her expenses. These plans made the distance seem less daunting. "And don't worry about Sophia," Mom added. "She's doing so well now. We'll be fine while you're gone." Sophia herself seemed to have turned a corner. During our weekly family dinners in the month leading up to my planned departure, she asked thoughtful questions about my new position. She even helped me research neighborhoods in Tokyo and suggested Japanese movies I should watch to get a feel for the culture. "I'm really proud of you, bro," she said during one dinner. "You've always been the smart one, the one with the plan. It's cool to see it paying off." Her words meant more to me than she could know. Despite our different paths, Sophia's approval still mattered. Maybe this move was helping her see that hard work and persistence did lead somewhere worthwhile. The weeks before my scheduled departure were a whirlwind of preparations. I gave notice on my apartment, sold most of my furniture, and put the few sentimental items I couldn't part with into a small storage unit. I attended orientation sessions with the company's international relocation team, got the necessary vaccinations, and started basic Japanese language lessons online. Each step made the opportunity feel more real and exciting. I found myself smiling randomly throughout the day, a sense of adventure building inside me that I hadn't felt since I was a kid. This wasn't just a job change, it was a life change. 2 weeks before my planned departure, I organized a special dinner for Mom and Sophia at Mom's favorite seafood restaurant overlooking Puget Sound. The sunset painted the water gold and pink as we clinked glasses. To new adventures, Mom toasted, her eyes misty. To Tokyo, Sophia added. And to Big Brother Marco, showing us how it's done. We laughed and talked for hours. Mom shared stories from my childhood, how I had always been the serious one, building elaborate Lego structures while other kids were running wild. How I'd taught myself basic coding on an ancient computer a neighbor had given us. Sophia reminisced about how I'd helped her with math homework, even when I was exhausted from my own studies and part-time job. For the first time in years, I felt a harmony between us, a mutual respect and understanding. Maybe this was what growing up looked like, all of us finally finding our places in the world and supporting each other's journeys. Maybe the distance would be good for all of us, forcing Sophia to rely on herself more, giving Mom the space to see her daughter as an adult capable of standing on her own. The day before the text that would change everything, I went into the office to sign the final paperwork for the Tokyo position. There was a small celebration with my team, a cake with a crude drawing of Mount Fuji in the frosting, a card signed by everyone with good wishes in both English and awkward Google-translated Japanese. My manager handed me a gift, a high-end noise-canceling headset for the long flight. "We're going to miss your problem-solving around here," he said, "but we know you're going to crush it in Tokyo." I drove home feeling like I was floating. The Seattle skyline, a beautiful backdrop to my thoughts of future horizons. I spent that evening making final arrangements, confirming my flight, organizing my remaining belongings for shipping, making a list of goodbye calls to make the next day. Everything felt right. Everything felt earned. Everything felt possible. And then my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia that would bring it all crashing down. The text arrived during a final planning meeting with the international team. My phone vibrated against the conference table as we discussed the technical integration plans for the Tokyo office. Normally, I would have ignored it until after the meeting, but something made me glance down. Sophia's name on the screen gave me a momentary flutter of happiness. Maybe she was sending me good wishes for my final days in Seattle. What I read instead turned my stomach to stone. "I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of us while I figure things out. Mom agrees it's best if I focus on finding my passion. We can move into your place next week." I read it 3 times, certain I must be misunderstanding. The words remained unchanged, their meaning unavoidable. The room around me continued its normal rhythm of discussion, budget projections, equipment requirements, staffing needs, while my world tilted on its axis. "Marco, your thoughts on the server configuration?" My manager's voice pulled me back to the meeting. "I'm sorry," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "I need to step out for a moment. Family emergency." In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, trying to process what I'd just read. Images flashed through my mind. Sophia quitting jobs on impulse before, the time she dropped out of community college 3 weeks into the semester because it wasn't speaking to her soul, the string of abandoned apartments and roommates left in her wake over the years. But this was different. This wasn't just Sophia being Sophia. This message revealed a level of entitlement and disregard that shocked me. She hadn't asked if I would help her. She hadn't acknowledged my plans, my life-changing opportunity. She had simply decided that my resources were hers to claim. And Mom agreed with this plan? The same Mom who had just toasted to my new adventure 2 weeks ago? Who had told me not to worry about them while I was gone? I dialed Sophia's number, my hands shaking slightly. It rang through to voicemail. Of course, she never answered when she knew a difficult conversation was coming. "Sophia, call me back immediately. We need to talk about this text. I'm in the middle of preparing for Tokyo, as you know. Call me back." Next, I called Mom. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cautious. "Oh, Marco, I guess Sophia texted you." "Mom, what is going on?" Sophia says she's quitting her job and that you support this? And something about moving into my apartment? You know I'm leaving for Tokyo in less than a week. A pause. Then, well, yes, but honey, plans change. Family comes first, right? Sophia's really been struggling at that job. Her boss is awful to her. She needs some time to find what really makes her happy. The familiar script. The boss was always awful. The job was always wrong for her. The apartment was always problematic. And family was always the trump card that ended all logical discussion. Mom, I've signed the contract. The company has arranged housing in Tokyo. My apartment here is already rented out to new tenants starting next week. I've sold my furniture. This isn't a plan that can just change. Well, she replied, her voice taking on the wounded tone I knew well. I thought you'd want to help your sister. After everything we've been through as a family, after all I did to raise you both alone, there it was. The guilt. The invisible debt that could never be repaid. I closed my eyes, feeling a headache forming behind them. Mom, I do want to help Sophia. I always have, but this isn't helping. This is enabling her to avoid responsibility. Again. And this time, you're asking me to give up the opportunity of a lifetime to do it. I'm not asking you to give up anything, she replied, her voice hardening. I'm just saying family should be your priority. You can find another job. Sophia needs you now. The injustice of it burned in my chest. I had spent my entire life prioritizing family, working as a teenager to help with bills, setting up monthly transfers to Mom's account, bailing Sophia out of countless self-created crises. The one time I pursued something solely for myself, they viewed it as selfish, as abandonment. We'll discuss this tonight, I said finally, knowing there was no resolution to be found in this phone call. I need to get back to my meeting. I returned to the conference room, apologized for the interruption, and somehow made it through the rest of the meeting on autopilot, my mind 1,000 miles away from server configurations and staffing charts. Back at my desk, another text from Sophia waited. By the way, can you help me move some boxes to your place tomorrow? Gave notice to my landlord already. The casual presumption was breathtaking. She hadn't even waited for my response before setting her plan in motion. I typed and deleted several replies, each angrier than the last, before settling on, we need to talk in person. Family dinner tonight. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, whatever. Mom's making lasagna. I spent the rest of the workday in a fog, going through motions while my mind raced. Was I overreacting? Was family truly the ultimate priority, even at the expense of my own future? What would happen to Sophia if I wasn't there to catch her? These questions had no easy answers, but one thing was clear. I couldn't make a decision of this magnitude based on a text message and guilt. That evening, I drove to Mom's house with a knot in my stomach. The small Rambler looked the same as always, the porch light, with its perpetually flickering bulb, the ceramic frog by the door that had been there since my childhood, the curtains Mom had sewn herself 20 years ago and refused to replace despite their faded pattern. Before I could even knock, the door swung open. Sophia stood there in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, looking completely unconcerned. Finally, I'm starving. Mom wouldn't let us start without you. She turned and walked back inside without waiting for a response, as if our text exchange had never happened, as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. I stepped inside, bracing myself for the confrontation to come, the disappointment hanging in the air like a physical thing, heavy and unavoidable. The smell of Mom's lasagna filled the small house, a scent that normally brought comfort but now only intensified my unease. In the kitchen, Mom was placing a large casserole dish on the table, which was already set with the mismatched plates and silverware from my childhood. Everything looked normal, ordinary, as if this were just another family dinner rather than a pivotal moment in our relationships. There he is, Mom said, smiling as if nothing were wrong. Just in time. Sit down. Let's eat while it's hot. I remained standing. Before we eat, I think we need to talk about Sophia's text and what's actually going on here. Sophia rolled her eyes as she dropped into her usual chair. Do we have to do this right now? I'm starving. Yes, we have to do this now, I replied, struggling to keep my voice level. You sent me a text saying you're quitting your job and expecting me to support you. You gave notice to your landlord apparently without even waiting for my response. This isn't a small thing, Sophia. This impacts all of us. Mom placed a serving spoon in the lasagna and sat down. Let's discuss it while we eat. No reason to let good food get cold. This was typical Mom's way of diffusing tension, of normalizing even the most significant conflicts. Food as peacemaker, as distraction. I sat reluctantly, knowing this conversation would happen with or without lasagna. So, I began, accepting a plate but not touching the food. Can someone explain to me why Sophia is suddenly quitting her job? The job she's had for almost a year. The longest she's ever stayed anywhere? The job that was going so well that I felt comfortable accepting the Tokyo position? Sophia took a large bite of lasagna before answering. That place is toxic, Marco. My boss takes credit for all my ideas. My coworkers are fake. I'm not growing there. The familiar complaints. The same reasons she'd left her last 6 jobs. And have you looked for another position before deciding to quit? Do you have savings to support yourself while you're unemployed? She waved dismissively with her fork. That's why I texted you. I need some time to figure out what I really want to do with my life. Find my passion, you know? I can't do that while stuck in some soul-crushing 9 to 5. So your plan is to move into my apartment, which, I remind you, is no longer mine as of next week, and have me support you financially while you find your passion. And where exactly would I be during all this? Mom interjected. We thought you could postpone Tokyo. Maybe for 6 months or so, until Sophia gets on her feet. Your company would understand for family reasons. I placed my palms flat on the table, trying to steady myself. Let me get this straight. You want me to turn down a career-defining opportunity, break a contract I've already signed, damage my professional reputation, and continue paying for an apartment I no longer want, so that Sophia doesn't have to work or pay rent while she finds herself? When you put it like that, you make it sound so selfish, Sophia snapped. Selfish? Are you serious right now? The control I'd been maintaining began to slip. I've worked for this opportunity for years. Years of overtime, of taking on the projects nobody wanted, of putting my personal life on hold. And now that it's finally happening, you want me to throw it away because you're bored with your job? It's not about being bored, Mom said, her voice taking on the injured tone that had always worked to make me back down in the past. Sophia is unhappy. As her brother, don't you care about that? Of course I care. But this isn't about caring. It's about accountability. It's about being an adult and facing consequences. Sophia pushed her plate away. I already quit, okay? Last week. So your lecture about looking before leaping is a little late. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Last week? You've known you were quitting for at least a week, and you're just telling me now, days before I'm supposed to leave the country? We were going to tell you earlier, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. But you were so excited about Tokyo, we thought it would be better to wait. Better for whom? I asked incredulously. Not for me, certainly. Not for the company that's expecting me in Tokyo on Monday. You waited because you knew I'd object, and you wanted to present me with a fait accompli. Mom reached across the table to touch my hand. I pulled away. Honey, I know this is disappointing, but I need you too. My Social Security barely covers the mortgage, and with prices going up, another layer to the manipulation unveiled itself. Not just Sophia, but Mom too. They had been discussing this between them, planning how to approach me, how to ensure I couldn't refuse. So this isn't just about Sophia finding her passion. You're also counting on me financially. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you've been picking up extra waitressing shifts lately, isn't it? Not to stay busy, but because you need the money. Mom's silence confirmed it. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? I would have increased the monthly transfers. I would have helped you find resources. You didn't have to conspire like this. We're not conspiring, Sophia protested. We're family. We're supposed to help each other. Help goes both ways, Sophia. When have you ever helped me? When have you ever considered what I might need or want? I have supported you emotionally and financially for years. The one time I pursue something for myself, you try to sabotage it. That's not fair. She slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. I've always been there for you. Been there how? Name one time you've sacrificed anything for me. One time you've put my needs before your own. Her silence spoke volumes. I can't do this anymore, I said finally. I can't be the solution to every problem, the safety net for every bad decision. I have my own life to live. Mom's face hardened in a way I'd rarely seen. So you're choosing your career over your family? After everything I sacrificed for you? I worked 3 jobs to put food on this table. I went without so you could have opportunities. And I'm grateful, Mom. I will always be grateful. But your sacrifices were to give us a better life, not to keep us tethered to you forever, not to make us feel guilty for pursuing our own paths. Some paths lead away from family, she said coldly. Is that really the path you want? The emotional manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly for the first time. The guilt, the obligation, the conditional love, it had always been there, but I'd been too close to recognize it. I'm leaving for Tokyo on Monday, as planned, I said, standing up. I'll help you both find other solutions, but I won't cancel my plans. I can't. Sophia's face contorted with anger. Fine. Abandon us, just like Dad did. The comparison stung more than she could know. Dad walked out without a word and never looked back. I'm communicating openly and offering alternative help. That's not the same thing. It feels the same to us, Mom said quietly. I looked at these 2 women who were my family, whom I loved despite everything, and realized that they could not see me clearly. They saw only what I could provide for them, not who I was or what I needed. I think I should go, I said, my appetite long gone. We're not going to resolve this tonight. As I walked to the door, Sophia called after me. So what am I supposed to do now? Sleep on the street? I turned back one last time. You have 5 days left at your apartment by your own admission. Use that time to call your friends, look for a new job, apply for assistance if you need to. There are options that don't involve derailing my life. As I drove away from Mom's house, missed calls and texts began flooding my phone. Extended family members, aunts, cousins, Mom's friends, all suddenly concerned about my abandonment of family. The narrative was already spreading, casting me as the villain, the selfish son who chose money over blood. I silenced my phone and drove aimlessly through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, feeling more alone than I had in years, yet somehow, beneath the hurt and anger, feeling the first stirrings of a long-overdue liberation. I barely slept that night. My apartment mostly empty now, except for a mattress on the floor, a folding chair, and suitcases packed for Tokyo felt like limbo, a space between worlds. Rain tapped against the windows as I stared at the ceiling, replaying the dinner conversation, wondering if there had been another way to handle it, another path through the minefield of family expectations. By dawn, I had made a decision. Not from anger, not from hurt, but from a place of clarity I hadn't experienced before. I showered, dressed in my best suit, and drove to the office earlier than usual. My director, James, was already there, reviewing reports with a cup of coffee. Marco, you're early. Everything set for Monday? I took a deep breath. That's what I wanted to discuss. I've had some family complications come up. His face fell slightly. I was afraid of this. Visa issues? No, nothing like that. It's personal family matters. But I want to be clear, I am absolutely committed to the Tokyo position. I'm asking if there's any way we can ensure that commitment is ironclad. James looked surprised but nodded. Well, we've already processed all your paperwork and signed the contract, but if you'd like, we could have legal review it to make sure everything is airtight. May I ask what's prompting this? I explained the situation briefly, leaving out the emotional details but making it clear that there was pressure from family to abandon my plans. James leaned back in his chair. Family pressure can be intense. I experienced something similar when I took the Singapore assignment years ago. My parents couldn't understand why I'd moved so far away. How did you handle it? I asked, grateful for his understanding. I went. It was hard at first, lots of guilt and second-guessing, but it was the right decision for my career, and honestly, for my sense of self. They came around eventually. Most families do. His words were reassuring, though I wasn't sure my family would follow the same path. I'd appreciate it if we could review the contract today and make any necessary additions. I want to make sure there's no ambiguity about my commitment. Of course. I'll have HR and legal prioritize it. We can have a meeting this afternoon. I spent the morning in a strange state of calm productivity, finalizing handover documents for my team, creating detailed knowledge transfer guides, and answering last-minute questions. Each task felt like another step toward the future I was choosing, despite the emotional hurricane swirling around me. At 2 o'clock, I sat in the conference room with James, an HR representative, and a member of the legal team. They had prepared an addendum to my contract, emphasizing the company's expectations regarding my start date in Tokyo and the investments already made in my relocation. This isn't really necessary from our perspective, the legal representative explained. But if having it in writing helps your situation, we're happy to accommodate. I signed the documents, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was a declaration of independence, a statement about who I was and what I valued. Back at my desk, I took out my phone and looked at the dozens of missed calls and messages. With steady hands, I typed a response to Sophia's original text. "That's not on me. I've signed the contract for Tokyo starting Monday." The response was immediate, a flood of angry texts accusing me of betrayal, of selfishness, of caring more about money than family. I didn't respond. There was nothing more to say that wouldn't escalate the situation further. Then my phone rang Mom's number. I answered, bracing myself. "Marco, we need to talk about this. Sophia is devastated." "Mom, I've made my decision. I'm going to Tokyo as planned. I've signed additional contractual commitments today that make it impossible to back out without serious legal and financial consequences." Her sharp intake of breath was audible. "You deliberately made it harder to change your mind? How could you do that knowing what we're going through?" "What you're going through is a situation of Sophia's creation. She chose to quit her job without having another lined up. She chose to give notice at her apartment without confirming she had somewhere else to go. These were adult decisions she made, and they come with adult consequences." "She's your sister," Mom's voice rose in pitch, "and I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It means everything to me," I said quietly. "But it doesn't mean I'll let you use that relationship to manipulate me into giving up my own life. I've set up a separate account with emergency funds that you, not Sophia, you can access if absolutely necessary. I'll text you the details." "Money isn't the point," she snapped, though we both knew it was at least part of the point. "It's about being there for family. I'll be a 6-hour flight and a video call away. I'll visit. You can visit me. This isn't abandonment, Mom. It's growth." The line went silent for a long moment. Then, "I need to go. Sophia needs me." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a new message from Mom. "After everything I sacrificed for you, this is how you repay me? Your sister is in tears. If you get on that plane, don't consider yourself part of this family anymore." The words hit like physical blows. Don't consider yourself part of this family anymore. An ultimatum, a severing of ties, a conditional withdrawal of love from my own mother. I left work early, unable to focus. The rain had intensified, matching my mood as I drove back to my nearly empty apartment. Once inside, I sat on the mattress, phone in hand, rereading Mom's message until the words blurred. For the first time since this began, I allowed myself to cry. Not quiet tears, but deep, heaving sobs that came from somewhere primal within me. I cried for the little boy who had worked so hard to help his mom, for the teenager who had sacrificed normal high school experiences to stock shelves after school, for the young man who had measured his worth by how well he could solve other people's problems. I cried because part of me, a larger part than I wanted to admit, still craved their approval, still wanted to be the good son, the good brother. I cried because choosing myself felt like an act of betrayal, even though logically I knew it wasn't. The storm of emotion gradually subsided, leaving me exhausted but somehow clearer. I thought about what James had said about his Singapore assignment, about the guilt and the eventual acceptance. I thought about all the nights I'd lain awake worrying about Mom's bills or Sophia's latest crisis. Most of all, I thought about the person I wanted to be, not just a son or a brother, but a whole human being with dreams and aspirations of my own. Someone who could help others from a place of strength and choice, not obligation and guilt. As midnight approached, I made another decision. This wasn't just about Tokyo anymore. This was about fundamentally reshaping my relationship with my family, establishing boundaries that should have been set long ago. Morning would bring difficult actions, painful conversations, but as I finally drifted toward sleep, I felt something unexpected beneath the sadness and resolve, a whisper of freedom, of possibility. The first breath of a self I had kept submerged for too long. I woke with the first light, my mind clear despite the emotional exhaustion of the previous day. The rain had stopped, and pale sunlight filtered through my blindless windows. It felt symbolic somehow, the storm passing, clarity emerging. I showered, made coffee in my last remaining mug, and sat on my folding chair to plan the day ahead. First, I called my financial advisor, Anthony, and scheduled an emergency meeting for 9 o'clock. Next, I emailed Sophia a detailed, carefully worded message. Not in anger, not in haste, but with deliberate thought behind every word. Sophia, I understand you're angry and hurt by my decision to proceed with the Tokyo position. I'm sorry for the pain this causes you, but I need you to understand that this decision isn't about rejecting you or Mom, it's about finally pursuing the path that's right for me. I won't be changing my mind about Tokyo, but I do want to help in ways that don't involve enabling patterns that ultimately hurt all of us. I can offer to 1. Connect you with recruiters in my network for job opportunities. 2. Help you create a budget and financial plan. 3. Pay for 1 month of rent at a new apartment once you find a job. What I cannot and will not do is 1. Postpone or cancel my Tokyo position. 2. Continue to provide ongoing financial support without clear goals and timelines. 3. Allow guilt or emotional manipulation to dictate my life choices. I love you, Sophia. I always will. But love doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Sometimes it means saying no to patterns that keep us both stuck. Marco. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then drove to meet Anthony. The financial planning office was quiet on a Saturday morning, and Anthony had coffee waiting when I arrived. This is unusual, he said as we sat in his office. Everything okay? I explained the situation, Mom's financial struggles that she'd hidden from me, Sophia's expectation of support, and my imminent departure for Tokyo. Anthony listened without judgment, nodding occasionally. So I need to set up a system that provides some safety net for Mom, but with clear boundaries, something that can't be abused or drained for non-essential purposes. Anthony tapped his pen against his notepad. We can create a trust with specific conditions. Your mother would have access for documented needs, medical expenses, housing costs, utilities, but not just general withdrawals. And Sophia shouldn't have access at all? He gave me a level look. Based on what you've described, giving her direct access would undermine the boundaries you're trying to establish. If your mother chooses to share with her, that's between them. But structurally, the account should be for your mother only. We spent the next hour working out the details. I would fund the account with enough to cover Mom's mortgage for 6 months and other basic necessities, but not enough to support both her and Sophia indefinitely. Anthony would serve as trustee, reviewing withdrawal requests against the established criteria. This is a healthy boundary, Marco, he assured me as I signed the paperwork. You're providing genuine help while encouraging independence. My next stop was to meet Jackson, my oldest friend who had known my family since childhood. We met at a coffee shop near the waterfront, the Space Needle visible through misty clouds. Man, I heard from my mom that things got intense with your family, he said as he sat down. She said your aunt was calling everyone saying, you abandoned them or something? I sighed. News travels fast. Yes, it's been a mess. I gave him the condensed version. Jackson had his own complicated family history, parents who had divorced messily when we were in middle school, a father who had leveraged guilt to extract money and support from Jackson for years. Sounds familiar, he said when I finished. Remember when my dad needed temporary help after he lost his job? That temporary turned into 3 years of me paying his rent. I remember. You finally cut him off last year, right? Jackson nodded. Hardest thing I've ever done. He didn't speak to me for 4 months. Called me every name in the book. Had relatives calling me saying I was cruel. How did you handle it? Poorly at first, he admitted with a rueful smile. Lots of second-guessing, lots of sleepless nights. But then something interesting happened. He got a job, found cheaper housing, started figuring things out without me as his safety net. And now we talk once a month. It's not perfect, but it's better, more honest. He respects me more, I think. And I definitely respect myself more. His words resonated deeply. My mom said if I get on that plane, I shouldn't consider myself part of the family anymore. Jackson winced. That's harsh. But ask yourself this. Is that really love? Making your family membership contingent on sacrificing your own life? The question hung between us, profound in its simplicity. Was that love? Or was it control disguised as love? What would you do? I asked. Get on that plane, he said without hesitation. Build your life. Set your boundaries. Give them time to adjust to the new reality. Real family finds its way back to each other, but on healthier terms. After lunch with Jackson, I made one last attempt at reconciliation. I drove to Mom's house, uncertain of my welcome, but determined to try. Sophia's car was in the driveway. I knocked, waiting anxiously on the porch where I'd stood countless times throughout my life. Mom opened the door, her expression guarded. I didn't expect to see you. Can I come in? I'd like to talk calmly, openly. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Sophia was on the couch, her posture stiffening when she saw me. I've come to offer real help, I said, remaining standing as neither had invited me to sit. Not what you asked for, but what I can genuinely give. I outlined what I'd arranged with the Trust for Mom and the job connections I could facilitate for Sophia. I won't be changing my mind about Tokyo, but I don't want to leave with this rift between us. I love you both too much for that. Mom's face remained impassive. So you've made arrangements for us, without consulting us, based on what you think we need. I made arrangements based on what I can provide while maintaining healthy boundaries. Sophia stood up. We don't need your charity or your conditions. We needed you to be here, to be present, to actually care about what happens to us. I do care. That's why I'm here now, trying to find a solution that works for everyone. A solution that lets you do exactly what you want while feeling good about throwing us a few dollars? Mom's voice was sharp. That's not a solution, Marco. That's absolving yourself of responsibility. My responsibility is to help in ways that promote growth and independence, not dependence. I won't apologize for that. The conversation circled painfully for another 20 minutes, making no progress, finding no common ground. They wanted concession. I offered compromise. They demanded presence. I offered support from a distance. The gap between these positions seemed unbridgeable. Finally, I stood to leave. My offer stands. The trust is set up. My contact list of recruiters is in your email, Sophia. I hope you'll reconsider, but I understand if you need time. We've given you a lifetime, Mom said softly. You've given us an afternoon. Outside, I sat in my car for several minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, fighting the urge to go back in, to give them what they wanted, to abandon my plans, and remain in the familiar pattern of sacrifice and resentment. But something had shifted irreversibly inside me. I started the engine and drove away from the house I'd grown up in, uncertain if I would ever be welcomed back. That evening I made the hardest decision yet. I went to my mobile carrier and changed my phone number, sending the new contact information only to work colleagues, Jackson, and a few other close friends. I wrote the number on a piece of paper which I sealed in an envelope addressed to Mom, with a note saying she could reach me in emergencies but that I needed space to establish my new life without daily emotional pressure. I dropped the envelope in the mail, then returned to my apartment to spend my last night in Seattle sitting on my mattress, surrounded by packed suitcases and the echoing emptiness of a space I was leaving behind both physically and metaphorically. Monday morning arrived with surprising calm. I handed over my apartment keys to the property manager, loaded my suitcases into a rideshare, and headed to SeaTac Airport. Each step through security, each announcement over the airport speakers, each minute that passed brought me closer to the plane that would carry me away from everything familiar. I checked my new phone repeatedly, part of me still hoping for a message from Mom or Sophia, something conciliatory, something that would allow me to leave with less weight on my heart. But the screen remained stubbornly void of family communication. As I settled into my seat on the aircraft, I placed my noise-canceling headset over my ears and closed my eyes. The captain announced our departure for Tokyo Narita International Airport, and I felt the subtle push as the plane began to move. Not just a physical journey, but an emotional one. I was choosing myself, perhaps for the first time in my life. The first weeks in Tokyo were a blur of new experiences and challenges. The company-provided apartment was small but modern, located in a bustling neighborhood filled with neon signs I couldn't read and food I was just learning to order. Work was demanding, the cultural differences both fascinating and occasionally frustrating. I threw myself into it all: the language classes, the technical challenges, the exploration of my new city. And beneath it all ran a current of guilt and doubt. Each night before sleep, I would wonder if I had made the right choice. Each morning, I would wake with renewed determination to prove to myself as much as to my absent family that I had. I sent emails to Mom's account weekly, brief updates about my new life, always ending with questions about her well-being. For 2 months, there was no response. I continued sending them anyway, refusing to let the silence deter me. In my 3rd month in Tokyo, I established a routine of weekend explorations. Each Saturday, I would choose a different neighborhood to discover. It was during one of these explorations, sitting alone in a tiny ramen shop while rain fell outside, that I received my first email from Mom. It was short, just 3 sentences. The house needed a new water heater. The trust covered it. Thank you. Not warm, not forgiving, but communication nonetheless. I responded immediately with genuine pleasure at hearing from her, keeping my reply light and positive, asking again about her health and activities. Another month passed before she replied again, this time with a slightly longer message that included a brief mention of Sophia having interviews lined up. Slowly, gradually, our digital communication increased in frequency and warmth. By the 6-month mark, we were exchanging emails every week or two. Mom began sharing small details of her life. A new book club she joined, repairs to the house, a dinner with old friends. I told her about my Japanese language progress, the colleagues who had become friends, the unexpected beauty of cherry blossoms that transformed Tokyo in spring. What we didn't discuss was the rift that had separated us, the ultimatum that had been issued and defied. It remained an unspoken presence in our careful exchanges. Then came the email I hadn't dared hope for. From Sophia, appearing in my inbox on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I got a job, full-time, benefits, at an advertising agency, started last month. It's actually interesting work. Got my own studio apartment too. Not in the best neighborhood, but it's mine, and I pay for it myself. Mom says you're doing well in Tokyo. No apology, no direct acknowledgement of our conflict, but between the lines I read something new. A grudging pride in her independence, a subtle recognition that she had found her way without me as her safety net. I responded with genuine congratulations and specific questions about her work. Our subsequent emails were cautious but increasingly open. She shared challenges at the new job, frustrations, small victories. I offered advice when asked, encouragement always. In my 10th month abroad, during a video call that had become our monthly ritual, Mom surprised me by saying, Sophia's really changed. She's more responsible now. More like you. That's great, I said, carefully neutral. Mom looked away from the camera for a moment. I think, perhaps, we relied on you too much. Expected too much. It wasn't quite an apology, but from Mom, it was extraordinary, an admission that the dynamics had been unbalanced, that their expectations had been unfair. I just wanted everyone to be okay, I said, including me. She nodded slowly. I understand that better now. As my 1-year anniversary in Tokyo approached, the company offered to fly a family member to visit. I extended the invitation to Mom, unsure if she would accept. Her affirmative response came the same day, with an additional note. Sophia says to tell you, she can't come because of work commitments, but she sends her love. Work commitments, responsibility, independence. The transformation was remarkable. Mom's visit was a revelation. Seeing Tokyo through her eyes helped me appreciate anew the adventure I was living. And watching her interact with my colleagues, my new friends, my new world gave her insight into what this opportunity had meant for me. On her last night, sitting in a small restaurant overlooking the city lights, she reached across the table and took my hand. I was wrong, she said simply. Wrong to try to hold you back. Wrong to make you feel guilty for living your own life. The words I had longed to hear, had perhaps needed to hear to fully embrace my choice. I understand why you did it, I replied. You were scared. Yes. Scared of change. Scared of losing you. Scared of facing my own part in enabling Sophia's dependency. She squeezed my hand. But I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, I said, meaning it. Sorry for the pain my leaving caused. Sorry for the way it happened. But not sorry you went. No, I admitted. Not sorry for that. She nodded, a small smile touching her lips. Good. You shouldn't be. When I took her to the airport the next day, our goodbye was different from any we had shared before, equal adults embracing with mutual respect and genuine love. Not the complicated tangle of obligation and guilt that had characterized our relationship for so long. The months that followed brought continued growth in all our relationships. Sophia and I established a weekly video game session online, a shared activity that let us rebuild our connection through play rather than crisis. Mom joined a travel group for seniors and began planning her own adventures, sending me photos from weekend trips to Oregon and Vancouver. As my 2-year assignment neared its end, I faced another decision: extend my time in Tokyo or return to Seattle. The company was eager for me to stay, offering increased responsibilities and compensation. I was torn, my life in Japan now rich with friendships and professional satisfaction. During a video call with Mom and Sophia, now a regular event, I shared my dilemma. What do you think I should do? I asked, curious about their perspective but no longer seeking their approval. Mom answered first. What do you want to do, Marco? I think I want to stay, I admitted. At least for another year or two. Sophia grinned. Then stay. Japan looks amazing from all your photos. Maybe I can visit next time. The agency might even have some clients there I could connect with. We'll miss you, Mom added. But we'll be fine. We are fine, and we want you to be happy. Simple words, yet they represented a profound shift in our family dynamic, from expectation to acceptance, from dependence to mutual support, from conditional to unconditional love. That night, I stood on my small balcony, overlooking the Tokyo skyline, reflecting on the journey of the past 2 years. The hardest lesson had been learning that sometimes true family love means setting boundaries, means saying no, means allowing others to face the consequences of their own choices. The deepest pain had come from breaking old patterns, but also the greatest growth. By refusing to enable Sophia, I had inadvertently given her the gift of self-reliance. By standing firm against Mom's emotional manipulation, I had created space for a more authentic relationship to develop. And by choosing myself, my dreams, my goals, my well-being, I had become someone better able to truly support those I loved, not from obligation, but from strength and choice. The text that had once seemed to threaten everything had, in the end, catalyzed transformations none of us could have imagined. By refusing to be the solution to everyone else's problems, I had allowed us all to find better solutions within ourselves. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your own needs and family expectations? How did you handle it, and what did you learn? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you found my story helpful, subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share with anyone who might be struggling with family boundaries. Remember that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most meaningful growth for everyone involved. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own journey of self-discovery and healthy relationships.